its subject marred in secrecy and often, sadly, shame. Students are being forced to sign gagging orders to stop them talking about sexual assault and rape, which they've been subject to on campus. The use of non-disclosure agreements is widespread, according to Labour's Shadow Minister for Domestic Violence and Safeguarding, Jess Phillips. And in many cases, students are told they will be expelled if they talk about the experiences after they've signed. Our political editor, Kate McCann, spoke to the Labour MP and started by asking her about the disturbing case of one woman who had signed such an agreement.
I spoke to a young woman who was at university, and somebody else in her halls of residence came into her room and raped her. They were still living in the same building that she was living in. She raised a complaint both with the police and with the university, the university who obviously own and run all of the accommodation in their site. And as it will take the criminal justice system, you're talking 3-4 years. A person would be graduated by the time that ever got anywhere in the criminal justice system, which is problematic in itself. But in the course of the investigation about the behaviour of this student, this young woman was told she had to tell the university when she was going to lectures, so that she made sure that she had no contact with him. She was treated exactly as he was treated. They both were asked to sign non-contact agreements, so she had to say where she was moving around, and she would be banned from certain areas if he was going to be in them. And in the very same document, it says that she will be expelled if she spoke about that process.
Why exactly would a university want to use an NDA against a student in this way?
Anybody who asks anybody to sign a non-disclosure agreement in these circumstances is because they don't want transparency of the processes, and because a lot of institutions maybe don't know how to handle these complex issues, or are purposefully handling them badly. I like to think it's more the former than the latter, but I'm afraid to say it's about reputation. It's about making sure that the reputation of those institutions is above all else protected.
And how must that feel for somebody if you've made an allegation of rape, you've been assaulted, you're away from home for the first time, and your university effectively tells you that you cannot speak about it?
One of the women who ended up with a settlement with the university after she had graduated because of the way they had treated her told me that actually the trauma of the attack is something that she can work to get over, but the breach of trust and the way she was treated like a pariah was a worse trauma. Already women feel like, and men who are sexually assaulted, feel like nobody will believe them. And when an institution, you might be the first in your family who's ever gone to university, you might have worked so hard to get into, sort of amazing inspired city, or to a university that you've always wanted to go to do something you really want to do, that you have a sort of love affair with that place, and it is an enormous breach of trust.
How widespread are these NDAs in the university system?
Oh, well, there's been various FOIs that found, which will be scratching the surface, that was around 370 non-disclosure agreements that were found through the FOIs, but it's around half of all universities were using them.
And the government is proposing that universities could sign up to a pledge which is non-binding, which would make sure that they didn't use NDAs on their campuses. Why doesn't that go far enough?
Well, there's a couple of problems with the pledge, although I would very much encourage all universities to sign up to them, and I think it's a step in the right direction, and I think that the government have been right to do that. However, the pledge is not legally binding in any way. It doesn't allow a victim any recourse in the law if that is broken. There is no system for them to report to. Just to report to the Department for Education. It doesn't seem as if there's any process. But also, if a woman has been raped and then silenced by a non-disclosure agreement, how is she going to tell us if the pledge has been broken at a university?
You've spoken a lot in the past about misogyny and the way that affects society. Do you think there is a bigger issue at play here? Do you think there's more that we need to grapple with?
No, I agree. I think the general public would think that it was absolutely awful. But these are old institutions in lots of circumstances, whether you're talking about Parliament, whether you're talking about our criminal justice system or the universities in our country. They are old institutions often that need to modernise with regard to that. And misogyny, without doubt, whether it's active misogyny or just not being able to hear some people's voices as equally and thinking it's okay to silence them, is not an uncommon thing.
The Labour Party has been accused of trying to use NDAs against a number of its own staff in the past. I mean, you've mentioned the use of those kind of documents in this place, in Parliament. How does it make you feel when it's your own party?
Well, I mean, I would never, ever agree to the use of non-disclosure agreements, and in the cases where certainly, I mean, around confidentiality, of course, that is a different issue. Where there are cases of sexual harassment, sexual violence, racist bullying, or any sort of bullying or harassment, really, in all the forms that it can happen, I make it absolutely clear that I don't think any institution should be using non-disclosure agreements, but it is my understanding that the Labour Party absolutely doesn't use non-disclosure agreements in those circumstances, and that is something that I'm not here to pretend that all institutions are perfect. I am here to have a go at them all equally when they're not.